Hey everybody, welcome to where all the action happens. This is Radio Row SEC Football Media Days. Everybody in the sport is here covering the coaches, the players, all of the hubbub, which means football is right around the corner. Kip Kiefer, Terry Quillian have been here all week covering this. We are going to be presenting a show today on the starting lineup, and we're glad you're with us. The starting lineup, we're going to focus on a lot of our experiences this week, compile a lot of the informational reports we've been filing back and forth. So it's going to be kind of a montage of our experience this week, because when we're in the starting lineup, you're in the starting lineup with us. So buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride this next half hour here on ABC 3340, the starting lineup from SEC Football Media Days. Welcome everybody, Kip Kiefer at SEC Media Days. This is the kickoff event, Fan Fest, and it's happening. A lot of fans from all the teams in a great spot here just down the street from the headquarters hotel, the Marriott, where tomorrow Commissioner Sankey will kick off the SEC festivities. And welcome everybody, and we'll start hearing from coaches. It's going to be a great week. Kip Kiefer, the First Lady Terry Quillian, and the legend who's already been recognized. A fan came up to him and said, "Have you found DeBoer yet?" Well, it hasn't happened yet, but when it does, you will be here with us, because we're here, your starting lineup, your Kip Kiefer sports team. That means you're here. You're right with us all the way.
This is the legend, the six-time Paul Feinbaum Caller of the Year here at SEC Media Days with the great Kip Kiefer. Kip, what was your impressions of the commissioner this morning?
He talked a lot but didn't really say much, is how I would sum it up.
You heard Coach Drink, the Missouri coach, sound awful confident. What was your thoughts on him?
Well, it's so funny about styles. Coach Venables was more of a kind of charge up everybody about Oklahoma's chances, where Coach Drink basically read his entire roster. He was much better in the question and answer situation, and he said some things that were kind of bothering me, tying back into your question about Commissioner Sankey, talking about we can't diminish the significance of the regular season. Well, Drinkwitz cut right to the chase. What happens if you start resting players at the end of the year in anticipation of being in the playoffs? That is the question that has got to be answered.
You heard Oklahoma, Brent Venables. What was your impression of him? Seemed like a confident man with a confident roster.
Yeah, he's really a football coach defined. I mean, he's just a guy who's optimistic. He looked great. He was in a good mood and was glad to be here. I was very impressed with Coach Venables.
This is SEC Media Days. We're live at Tampa. Kip Kiefer Sports doing it big. I'm the legend. Hey, I know y'all wish y'all was me. I'm out till later on.
Hey everybody, it is Kip Kiefer and the Legend, SEC Media Days, day one winding down. Legend, who was the guy today that you thought had the most swagger?
Well, I really thought that Coach Drink had the most swagger. I like Coach Drink. I met him out in the hallway, real kind and generally had a great smile on his face. And I heard a lot of confidence from Coach Drink when he talked about his roster. Austin Simmons, Ahmad Hardy. Man, he's got something going on at Missouri. It might be a big year for the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, they're one of those teams. There are 4 or 5 teams in the SEC, I think, and we haven't heard from everybody, of course, but there's teams that can make noise that we just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I'd seen Coach Heupel. He looked like he was miserable out in the hallway. When he got up to speak, he was miserable again. But if I had his quarterback situation, I'd be miserable too, Kip. So that's where I'm at on that.
Well, Tennessee's, I think, one of those teams that maybe could go either way, but we'll hear from some more coaches tomorrow. What did you think about Will Stein from Kentucky?
I like Will Stein. He's just in an impossible situation. When you go to war with only one tank and you're facing an army of million tanks, you're in a bad place, Will Stein. Probably should have stayed in Oregon, brother.
That's funny. You're emphasizing what Case Kiefer texted me. He says, I can't believe he took that job.
I can't believe it either. If you waited a year, you might have got a better job. Now, who knows?
Wrapping it up on day one from SEC.
Let me tell you what I thought about Greg Sankey.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I met Mr. Sankey out the hallway, good man, but he reminds me of Greg Burns. A lot of stress on that forehead right there. It might be in over your head there, Greg.
Legends face-to-face was the same result with both those guys.
Yep, been a great day. First day of SEC meets here at Media Day with the First Lady and Kip Keeper. We blowing it up, baby. It's great.
We'll be back tomorrow with more from Tampa.
Yeah, guys that are in their different years as far as, Austin going into his fourth year, really the fourth year in this system. Keelan going into his second, so there's a little bit of a difference there. I know that both of them would say what they know now versus what they even knew a year ago. I think especially in Keelan's case, when it comes to just football knowledge, understanding of the offense, understanding of how you attack a defense, defensive structure. I think their reps have helped them really take these big jumps, especially in the last 5 months. And I think last year helped them too with the reps that we gave them. We're very intentional with how we distribute them, and so I think skill set wise, you're talking about a much taller, bigger quarterback with Austin. Austin, I think, will surprise people when he really gets out and runs, because he runs very well, better, I think, than most people think. Keelan is very versatile that way, has created with his legs, as a high school football player. You can see it at times. It's hard to replicate when you're in practice and a guy's not live, and what that might lead to on the football field in a game. But both of them are more than capable. I think they're high-level elite quarterbacks. Fortunately, we have them both in our program, and it's going to be a competition that's going to lead to a tough decision. It's one that we're fortunate to have, and it's going to be one that when we do make the decision that we'll be confident we'll do a great job, because they are two guys that are well respected by our entire football team because of how they work, who they are as people, and the production and what they look like on the football field.
I think offensive football is unique in the sense that you better be able to adjust, and you better be able to continue to grow and evolve. That's one thing that as we've kind of gone through the evolution of this offense, we've done a really good job of being able to adjust to what we're getting. So the fact that our quarterback has been in it, and we inherited him as an 18-year-old, and now he's a 22-year-old, has played a ton of football, certainly helps. The center being in the system and starting a bunch of games certainly helps. But you can only go as far as everybody's on the same page. And so even though there's some guys in that room that have been in it, I think the core foundation is going to continue to be the same, but we've got to evolve and change.
Wanted to ask about the wide receiver room in particular. One of the bigger question marks, at least that I have, how would you assess the wide receiver room heading into fall camp?
I'm just very thankful for people like you, Steve, that keep questioning them, because the more you question them, the more it helps me motivate them. So everybody says that we don't listen to you guys. Well, the wide receivers are listening, so they'll have a new challenge issued based on your question.
Hey, I'm here with Kip Keeper Sports with the great Kip Keeper. He was inside today listening to the coaches and the players. Who impressed you, Kip?
Kirby Smart was awesome, but Auburn fans, you've got the right guy. I am a big Alice Golish fan. I already liked what he was doing, and I really enjoyed his presentation today. It was more like a CEO taking over a big company than a coach.
Well, what do you think about Kirby Smart? He was here today. Kirby looked like he was confident in his team. I thought I was looking at Nick Saban Jr. there. What'd you think?
Kirby's a rock star, and he started off complimenting Greg Sankey. That was a bit of a surprise. They have had their moments, but he said this guy under fire is doing a great job. So Kirby commanded the room, exuded all kinds of confidence. You got to think that Georgia is going to be lined up for a really good season.
Vandy, I seen Jarrett Curtis on a video this morning. He looked like the real deal. Coach Lee looked like a man of confidence. I like Coach Lee. What was your impression?
Yeah, Coach Lee is very confident in an individual. He's done a great job, made some very innovative moves. I just think they've got to take a step back. How much of those games did Pavia and Stowers win last couple of years for Vanderbilt? I think they'll still be competitive, but I don't expect them to be at that level this year.
A lot of people down here don't like the Legend as a part of the media. What do you think about Legend as part of the media?
Legend's the straw that stirs the drink. It's just the way it goes, but we're glad to have him here, and we're glad to be reporting from Tampa, and we will be back shortly with more on day 2 of SEC Football Media Days.
Good afternoon from day 2 of SEC Media Days in Tampa. I'm Terry Pullian. I'm here with Kip Keefer of Kip Keefer Sports and the Legend. Kip, today, Kirby Smart started us off with a bang in Media Days today. How would you describe his presentation this morning?
As he walked off the stage, I said, now that's how it's done. He was completely in command. He owned the room. It was a phenomenal performance.
Yeah, you could feel it from everybody in the room too. All the seats were taken. Everyone's listening to every word. I loved it when somebody tried to trip him up and said it in a not so nice voice. So Kirby, how you feeling about your wide receiver room? And Kirby's response was classic Kirby.
Yes, Kirby said, it's not up to me to make those comments. That's what you guys get paid for. But let me tell you, every time you guys talk about my wide receiver room, it motivates those guys. It fires them up because they want to go out there and prove you wrong. And I love it.
Yeah, and then Kirby was like, keep asking it more, because I'm just going to play this over and over for them. Which, by the way, made everybody in the room realize, you ask Kirby a dumb question, you're going to get taken out.
Yeah, I love to also when the reporter from the Knoxville paper asked him, Tennessee's not on your schedule anymore this year. How does that make you feel losing an automatic win?
Yeah. And Kirby was so diplomatic. He said, what are you talking about? Tennessee is a hard game. We practiced for that. We prepped for it. And he went on to give all kind of kudos to Tennessee, which I thought was cool. We'll have more from you later today here with the Legend, Kip Keefer, Terry Pullian, signing off for now from Tampa.
Hey, it's Case Kiefer back again for another edition of the Vegas Heaters as part of the starting lineup. I am a longtime sports bettor, sports betting writer, along with sports editor for Greenspun Media Group, which includes Las Vegas Sun and Las Vegas Weekly. Finally going to live up to the promise this week. It is officially football season. I know most of the rest of the show is coming from SEC Media Days down in Tampa, so I thought, why not? We dive into the SEC. I know I've been saying I haven't made any bets yet. I'm trying to take my time, and that is something I'm still really stressing this season. I want to be more patient. I don't want to build too many bets before I need to, I think, with the landscape of betting right now. We don't need to get into all that, but that is part of the reason why I'm trying to go a little bit slower. I still don't have a whole lot, but I've dug a lot into the SEC these last few weeks. Kind of tried to get ready for the season, look at the futures. I have not bet any of these, but I thought, why don't we dive in with 4 bets that I would make right now on the SEC if I was forced to bet. I think an over and under on the win totals and 2 of the bigger non-conference games. I think these pair really well because both win totals 6.5. One team I'm going to go over, one team I'm going to go under. In the non-conference game, there is one opponent of an SEC team I am going to take and one SEC team I'm going to take. So let's jump right into it. Let's go with the win totals first. Now, I kind of teased this one the last few weeks when I was down there in Alabama shooting some segments with the whole crew, but I can't fight it anymore. I think I'm officially in. I am Team War Eagle this year. I like Auburn. I think they are going to have a better year. At 6.5 here in Vegas, the lowest 6.5. You can find it over 6.5 even money. I just think I like Byron Brown enough. He's so experienced. I like the talent elsewhere. I don't think they're going to be outmanned on the trenches. I know that's a concern of some people. I just think they're going to be more competent this year. I don't know if I love Golesh yet, but automatically I like him better than at least the last 2 coaches. So I think Auburn is going to be a pain this year, not necessarily going to pull the trigger like I talked about at Circa, the biggest sportsbook here. They're 50-1 to win the SEC. That's even almost high enough to make me tempted on that. But we're going to go a little bit easier and go over 6.5 on Auburn, a team I've bet against a lot these last few years. I think it's served me well, but I do not mind flipping allegiances. I'm always going to go where the value lies, and my raw numbers came out a little bit higher than this 6.5 on Auburn. If you haven't watched the segment before, you got to know I'm a numbers guy, an analytics guy. Now number 1. So I'm trying to compile some things right now, and I think I was somewhere closer to 7 with the win total to get even money at 6.5. And that's just pure numbers. That's without my subjective opinion, too. I really like this Auburn team, so over 6.5. Might be biased on this other one. This is another team I've bet against a lot. However, it has not gone well these last few years. I also just kind of can't stand this team from a fan perspective. I went to the University of Kansas. That's our arch rivals. The University of Missouri. I'm going to take them under 6.5. It just seems like they have so many injury concerns coming into this year. Of course, we all know about Ahmad Hardy, who was a superstar for them last year. He's shot. We don't know when he's going to get back. He's just the headliner, though. They got other guys banged up. They lost their offensive coordinator, which I know Drinkwitz, a great offensive mind, should be able to figure it out a little bit there. But I do think that Kirby Moore was a big part of that. He is off to Washington State. And the biggest reason I did not understand, you probably heard me complain about this in past years, I don't understand how they always got such a great schedule draw year after year after year. Finally, that skids to a halt this year. I don't think they have the toughest schedule in the SEC, but it is significantly tougher. I think it's going to be a real uphill battle for the Tigers of Missouri to get over 500. So I'm going to go Missouri under 5.5. On to the 2 games I would bet right now if I had to. I guess we'll start in week 1. I think it's that standalone Monday Chick-fil-A kickoff game, Louisville and Ole Miss. I'm really tempted to actually jump in here, not just give out the bet, but actually bet it this early because the number just keeps coming down. Louisville, I think, was as high as 9.5 at opening, and maybe some of the big sports books. Now mostly 6.5. There's still some 7s floating around. I hate that I missed the 7.5, but I'm skeptical of Ole Miss. If you've listened to some of the things I said there, I'm kind of doubling down on that. I know they should be a little bit better defensively, but I think it's just kind of foolhardy to think they had the best season in school history. Okay, just do it again. Those are the types of teams to me I'm always looking to bet against the next year. I think it is a downgrade in coaching, even though we saw how well Golding did in the playoff. Maybe they prove me wrong. I am a big Trinidad Chandless guy, but I'm looking for spots to go against Ole Miss, and I think there's some hype bubbling with this Louisville team. Maybe they've got a little something cooking. I think a whole touchdown at a neutral site still enough for me. I don't want to go below the 7s. That's why I would jump in now and bet Louisville +7. And now the next game, a week 2 game. I'm going to take you all the way back to last year, to explain this one. If you remember, we talked about Ohio State, Texas so much at Columbus. I said all summer I didn't have a great feel on the game, but if Ohio State ends up being an underdog at home as the defending national champion, I was going to jump in. Ultimately, it did become that. I think I ended up betting Ohio State +1.5, maybe +2 in that game. Of course, they went outright. However, you go back and look at that game, and I said it all year, Texas really outplayed them, got stopped at the goal line on that one possession, and that was the difference. And I know this is going to sound like a hot take, and a lot of people disagree. I think this year's Texas team on paper is better than the Texas team coming into last year. I had guys shaping the market, really great sports bettors talking last year about how Texas was like historically great by the numbers. I think this year the stock's a little bit lower on them, and I don't necessarily agree. I think they're going to be better. The thing that worries me is the schedule, but that's a long-term concern. That's not a concern for week 2 where they will be hosting Ohio State. Right now they're mostly a 1.5 point favorite. However, it has gotten to pick one place. This number keeps going down, keeps going more in Ohio State's favor. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did last year. Wait until the last minute and bet the home team. I love Texas if they become an underdog in this game. However, that pick'em, I'm almost close. It's already tempting me. I'm going to go Texas pick'em in that huge week 2 game. I really am high on the Longhorns this year. I just don't see them getting out unscathed with this schedule. I don't even know if they win the SEC, but if they get to the playoff, I think they are the SEC's best chance to win a national championship, and I'll be betting on them week 2 against Ohio State, to go with Louisville, to go with Auburn over, and to go with the under on Missouri. It feels good to be back. There's some SEC college football plays to go along with Media Day. Let's wrap it up with the rest of the starting lineup.
It's great to be in Tampa for SEC Media Days. This is Gator Country. You're in Gator Country right here. So fired up to be in Tampa. I've had some fun visits down here since my arrival in Gainesville. What a great city to host SEC Media Days. Fun being down here. I'm honored to be the head football coach at the University of Florida. Still kind of get chills sometimes when I say that or I hear that said. I grew up in SEC territory. I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama. I was born in Texarkana, Texas, but raised in North Alabama. And as a kid growing up, there were 3 conferences in football in my mind. There was the NFC, the AFC, and the SEC. That's all I knew. Well, I'd say no 2 decisions are alike. Like Lane and I are friends, and Lane and I talked several times through the process of October, November about what it was looking like for both of our schedules of how things were going to unfold. And you'd be kicked out of our team meeting I swear, like, you're lucky I'm not going to throw this freaking podium right now. Like, it drives me crazy. I would say, who is that? But I'm not going to embarrass anybody. But no,
Look, I get this everywhere we go. So we're on our caravan tour right now with Ole Miss, and we go every Tuesday and Thursday and take a couple players and go around the country. So we go Q&A with everybody, so it's everybody tell me how you really feel about them. They're like this intimate, environment. But Lane and I are good. So, I did not know Coach Kiffin prior to taking the Ole Miss job. I think everybody just assumes Alabama. I wasn't at Alabama when Coach Kiffin was, So I didn't come to Ole Miss because of Coach Kiffin. I came to Ole Miss to be at Ole Miss to raise 3 kids. So, our relationship really grew in those 3.5 years, and he did a lot for me, and I was very, very appreciative of how he treated me and my family, and learned a lot from him. So I have no ill will towards Coach Kiffin. He texts me on a regular basis, and there's certain things that we'll talk about, and there are certain things that we don't talk about. He's very competitive, just like I'm very competitive. Right? And so obviously a lot of this went a different direction when now he had a new job with new responsibilities, and he's going to be super competitive to be the best that he can at that job, right? Which is his job. And so I can separate the two. I know some people can't. I tell a lot of these people, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I don't care. All right, like I told an Ole Miss group the other day at 21, I said, all right, in 2021, if you said you could look in 2025, and you're about to be 11-1 and go to the playoff, would you take it if your coach was leaving? They're like, hell yeah. I was like, you would. Everybody won from it. It's okay, Keith. Like, you made a great hire. You did a great job. Every place isn't for everybody. That's coaches, that's players, that's your job. That's everything, and that's okay.
Hey, Kip Kiefer back at SEC Football Media Days in Tampa. Getting ready to board the boat and go for a little cruise, but I thought I would duck in a report for you first. We heard from coaches today. A lot of folks in Birmingham very anxious to hear every word from Kalen DeBoer. He's sporting a very impressive tan and very white teeth, with distinguishing features today, to say the least. His messaging was positive. He still has kind of a subdued kind of persona. So, we've always talked about, is he a fit at Alabama? And as our cohort legend says, does he have the fire to win at Alabama? I'm not so sure after today, but a very good presentation all in all, and very impressed with Xavier Brown and Hollywood Williams, a couple of the guests, and Hubbard also, the other defensive back. So Alabama had a good session. John Summerall was a big hit today, the new Florida coach, dropping a lot of salty language and reacting to cell phones ringing in the crowd. Summerall showed a lot of personality. He also said, we better be good. Somebody asked him a question if they had to improve in the running game or on the defensive front. He said, we better, or we're going to get our ass kicked. So that's pretty solid and pretty candid. So Summerall was a big hit. And we just watched the late afternoon. Pete Golding, more of kind of the crusty throwback football coach. But Pete made a good presentation, very upbeat, very enthusiastic, and very appreciative of having the Ole Miss job. Mike Elko wrapped it up. Sounds a little bit more like a physicist than a football coach, but once again, Texas A&M has been very successful in the Elko reign. So that's the rundown on coaches today. Back tomorrow, Lane Kiffin takes the stage, and we will be here to catch it for you. Okay, folks, winding down SEC Media Days 2026 in Tampa. Terry, this morning, the Ringling Brothers, Barnum, and Lane Kiffin circus came to town, but it really wasn't what I expected. What were your impressions of Lane's comments?
Kip, it was absolutely not circus-like. In fact, Lane was very thoughtful, and I thought he was very frank and open and honest. It was interesting. Also, however, Lane is a very smart man, because here's what Lane did. Lane talked past the time that most of the other coaches talked. He took up a lot of extra time. And you know why he did that, Kip?
I think you had the theory correct. Why don't you say so?
He did that so he wouldn't have to take as many questions. He knew there were a lot of reporters in there that were loaded for bear, and Lane was not going to fall for it.
And when one did get a good question in, he kind of deflected it with some real ironic humor. I mean,
he was funny. But he was especially interesting talking about how he had subtracted social media from his life and how that brought more joy.
And the reason he subtracted, because his son, who's a junior in high school and a quarterback prospect himself, challenged him and said, "You are not capable of abandoning social media."
But he was, and he gave us all a life lesson where he said he learned that comparison is the theft of joy.
It was amazing. There's some Dale Carnegie in there. I thought there were some inspiring motivational thoughts. It really was a big surprise. Hey, but you, as an expert on speakers, he was visibly rocking, and what does that usually indicate?
Lane was either nervous or excited because he danced the whole time. He moved. In fact, as I was videoing him, I had to keep moving the camera because he moved. Then he put one leg behind the other one to try to make himself stand still. That lasted about 10 seconds.
And then we went over and talked to Whit Weeks, the linebacker coming back senior year, dating Lane's daughter, which is an interesting twist to the story, but what an impressive young man.
Oh, Whit Weeks was the single most impressive young man that I got a chance to be close to and to talk to this week. Kip Kiefer, Terry Quillian, we have loved bringing it to you from down here in Tampa.
You know, I met the commissioner 17 years ago. I was head coach at Tennessee, and I just think about, you know, you can never predict the future of your life and the directions that it goes. 17 years later, third SEC job, he was the associate commissioner at the time, and for Commissioner Slive, and I just have great respect for Greg and what he's done. And then I think about the 17 years, and I think about how far the SEC has come since then, when I first got into the conference, and through his leadership. You know, leadership, especially in the public eye, is not easy, and he has a really difficult job. And I think Greg does an amazing job of communicating with us as head coaches, and we don't always agree on his decisions, but I also understand now, being around longer, and he has 16 schools to please, and fan bases, and athletic directors, head coaches, and presidents to answer to. So many times his decisions that he has to come up, and I appreciate him for the strength that he shows, is really he's just making a decision based off what he's told to do by the ADs, and specifically by the president. So I appreciate Greg. I appreciate our friendship, and, you know, kind of growing through a lot of things together throughout the different stops of coming back to the SEC. Tampa is a really special place. I think it's kind of, things just happen sometimes, and flying down here, just kind of putting thoughts together, you know, that as the head coach of LSU, this being the first time on the podium at SEC Media Day, and it being in Tampa for the first time, as Greg alluded to, this is a really special place, not just for my dad, but for my family. My kids, all four.
So I hope you've enjoyed our little tour of SEC Football Media Days. We have been glad to have you and bring you all this coverage this week. Don't forget all of our social media platforms. You can catch up on all the clips, all the information of everything that's gone on here this week. It's been fantastic. We can't wait for football, because the SEC, you know what it stands for. It just means more. Kip Kiefer, Terry Quillian can't wait throughout the year to bring you updates on the starting lineup, and join us every Saturday on Game Time on WJOX 94.5, and on Sundays, our 10th season, 10 years of continuous radio. The morning after Kip and Terre will always be there to cover all the games and all the action you see all year. Let's play some football, folks. Let's get the cleats laced up and get ready for action.
The Birmingham Racecourse Casino starting lineup. Kip Kiefer, Tony Curry, The Legend, and Case Kiefer bring it every week.
The coaches don't like what's going on. Fella, wow. Congratulations.
Weather is of universal appeal. It affects you and everybody.